Punishing your child when they throw themselves on the floor is a mistake. Ignoring the situation, thinking they are just acting up, is also a mistake. Entire society points fingers and calls them ill-mannered, but neuroscience proves the exact opposite. What looks like a lack of boundaries is, in fact, a collapsing brain desperately fighting to survive. Your child isn't badly behaved. This is just how their brain works. I'm Gabby, and today we are going to step inside your child's mind to uncover the real mechanics behind autism and ADHD. No complicated medical jargon. We are going to use science to lift this massive weight off your shoulders and silence the judgment of those who understand absolutely nothing about your daily life. Our society has an unrealistic and cruel expectation that children should behave like tiny adults. We believe that crying and restlessness are simply moral failings, flaws in the parenting they received. But human development is pure biology. Building a brain is like building an empire. And for neurodivergent children, the architecture of this empire was designed to operate under completely different rules than ours. There is a myth that autistic children live in their own world because they feel less of what's happening around them. On the flip side, people say that a child with ADHD simply doesn't have the capacity to pay attention. Modern neuroscience, through brain imaging and decades of research, has proven that the reality is the exact opposite. They don't feel less, they feel too much, and they don't lack attention. They pay attention to absolutely everything, all the time and all at once. And it is right here at the epicenter of this sensory and chemical storm that our journey today begins. Let's talk first about autism and the true assembly line of neural connections. Imagine a newborn baby's brain as an incredibly dense jungle filled with billions of paths, trails, and electrical wires. As a neurotypical child grows, their brain does some gardening, a process that science calls synaptic pruning. It's as if the brain takes a pair of scissors and starts cutting away all the paths the child doesn't use frequently. It destroys the dirt roads and paves only the main highways. The brain becomes efficient. The hum of the refrigerator gets deleted from consciousness, the bright overhead light is ignored, the clothing tag stops being felt a minute after putting the shirt on. The neurotypical brain has a filter, a bouncer at the door saying, "This is sensory junk, no need to waste energy on it." But revolutionary studies on the mTOR pathway in the brain showed something fascinating about autism. In the autistic brain, this synaptic pruning is flawed. The mechanism that should do the cleaning and cut the excess wires simply doesn't work. The biological result of this is a hyperconnected highway. This is what neuroscientists Henry and Camilla Markram named the intense world theory. Try to imagine living 24 hours a day with the world's volume stuck on maximum. For an autistic child, the grocery store aisle light isn't just a bulb, it's a stadium spotlight flashing frantically directly into their pupils. The sound of a shopping cart rolling on the floor isn't a background noise, it's a fire alarm ringing inside their brain. The shirt tag rubbing against their neck feels like sandpaper scraping their skin over and over. This child's brain is processing 100% of all environmental information with 100% intensity, and when all these electrical pathways fire at once, the central processor overheats. This is exactly why we need to definitively separate what is a tantrum from what is a sensory meltdown. A tantrum is behavioral. The child throws a tantrum because they want a toy, candy, or attention. If you give them what they want, the crying magically stops. A tantrum is a theatrical performance that needs an audience to work. An autistic meltdown is neurological. The child doesn't want anything. They aren't trying to manipulate you. They have completely lost control over their own body because their autonomic nervous system has entered fight or flight mode. Screaming, aggression, biting themselves, covering their ears, or uncontrollable crying are not manipulation. They are biological safety mechanisms. The brain is forcing the system to reboot. It is a tactical blackout to avoid the extreme physical pain that this overstimulating environment is causing them. Now let's shift gears and talk about ADHD. But Gabby, my kid can spend 3 hours straight building Legos or playing video games without blinking. How is it that they can't focus for 3 minutes to put on their shoes? You've heard this phrase. You've asked yourself this question, and you've probably cried out of frustration because of it. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder has the most unfair name in all of medicine because the core problem for someone with ADHD is not a lack of attention. The problem is the biological inability to regulate where that attention is directed. Dr. Russell Barkley, one of the world's leading authorities on the subject, defines ADHD brilliantly. It's like having a Ferrari engine, but equipped with bicycle brakes, and the fuel that makes this Ferrari run has a name: dopamine. Dopamine is your brain's currency. Contrary to popular belief, it's not just the pleasure hormone. It is the molecule of motivation and reward. It is the paycheck your brain gives you so you can accomplish boring tasks. You only get off the couch to wash the dishes or fill out a work spreadsheet because your brain releases drops of dopamine that say, "Go do this, the end result will be worth it." In an ADHD brain, according to research mapped by Dr. Nora Volkoff, this payment system is defective. They produce less dopamine and have fewer efficient receptors to capture it. Your child's ADHD brain is literally chemically starving. They live in a chronic state of stimulus malnutrition. And what does a starving organism do to avoid dying? It looks for the fastest, easiest, highest calorie food it can find. Jumping on the couch, talking nonstop, interrupting conversations, poking a classmate in school, playing video games, eating sugar. All of this generates fast, cheap, and immediate bursts of dopamine. A child with ADHD isn't disciplined or lazy. Their brain is self-medicating with movement and chaos. When they're playing a video game, the game is designed to give rewards every 10 seconds. There are lights, sounds, point achievements. Their starving brain gets flooded with the dopamine it needs to function, and that's why they enter a state of hyperfocus. They can't step away from the screen because their survival system says, if we leave here, we're going back to the desert. But when you ask them to put their toys away or do their homework, their brain scans the task and concludes, this generates 0 dopamine right now. The payout is too far away. We don't have the energy to start. Hyperactivity is the desperate brain shaking its own body, trying to stay awake and stimulated in a world that demands the child sit still, quiet, staring at a chalkboard for hours. And the scenario gets even more complex when the child has what science calls AuDHD, autism and ADHD coexisting in the same mind. It is a true internal civil war. The autistic side begs for routine, predictability, order, and calm. The ADHD side hates routine, can't stand boredom, and wants to inject novelty and chaos all the time. The child organizes their toys with rigid, millimeter precision, and 5 minutes later, they destroy it all themselves and get frustrated. It's exhausting for you, Mom, but believe me with all your strength, it is 1,000 times more painful and exhausting for the child living inside this storm. So, knowing all this, knowing that you are dealing with brakeless engines and overheating neural highways, what do you do when a crisis hits? How do you act when a meltdown happens in the middle of the mall, in front of relatives on a Sunday, or at bedtime? This is where modern science meets wisdom that is over 2,000 years old. Stoicism teaches us something fundamental for atypical parenting. You cannot control the storm, but you have absolute control over how you steer your boat. The first golden rule of neuroscience during a meltdown is you will never, under any circumstances, be able to rationalize with a dysregulated brain. We have 2 main parts of the brain dealing with this situation. The prefrontal cortex, right behind the forehead, which is the CEO of the mind. It processes logic, rules, planning, and consequences. And deep down, we have the amygdala, which is our primitive alarm system, responsible for raw emotions and survival. At the exact moment of a sensory meltdown, the amygdala hijacks the brain. The prefrontal cortex, the logic, is literally unplugged. Demanding that a child in crisis calm down, yelling louder than them to show authority, or threatening to take away their favorite toy if they don't stop crying is the worst possible strategy. It is the equivalent of scolding a drowning person because they're not swimming properly. It's useless, it's cruel, and it will only put more water in their lungs. When the crisis hits, you are not going to focus on behavior. You are going to focus on physiological regulation. And for that, there are 3 urgent steps. Step number 1, be the thermostat, not the thermometer. In the middle of a meltdown, the child has lost their anchor of safety. They will look at you, even unconsciously, to find out if the world is actually ending. A thermometer merely reacts to the environment. If the room gets hot, its temperature rises. If you become a thermometer and your tone of voice and stress levels rise along with the child's screams, their crisis will multiply. The thermostat does the opposite. It dictates the temperature of the room. If the room is on fire, it pumps out freezing air. If you stay stable, taking deep breaths, keeping your body relaxed and your voice low, the child's nervous system, through mirror neurons, will start to seek out your frequency. Your mature nervous system needs to act as an anchor for the drifting child's nervous system. Step number 2, drastically reduce the cognitive load. Don't ask questions. Don't say, "What do you want?" or "What's wrong?" Their brain cannot process complex language during this amygdala hijack. The only thing you should do is close the doors to incoming stimuli. Take the child out of the bright, noisy environment. Take them to the car, to an empty room or a darker corner. Lower the volume of the world. Step number 3, offer containment without demands. Many neurodivergent children, especially on the autism spectrum, regulate themselves through deep pressure. A very tight hug, if they allow touch, works like a weighted blanket. This pressure sends a direct signal to the proprioceptive system that tells the brain our physical boundaries are safe. If they reject physical touch, don't force it. Sit on the floor near them and remain in absolute silence. Just your safe presence without judgment and without demands is already a powerful biological medicine. Learning, moral lessons, agreements, and disciplinary rules should only happen the next day or hours later, when the storm has passed and their logical brain is back online. Mom, Dad, guiding human development is the most epic and complex mission in all of nature. Raising a neurotypical child already drains practically all the energy a human being possesses, but raising a child with a brain that operates on a different operating system, that requires colossal strength. It requires a daily resilience that the vast majority of people rolling their eyes at you in the supermarket would never have the capacity to endure. Will you make mistakes on this journey? Yes, many. Will you lose your patience and end up yelling one day? Of course you will. Because your prefrontal cortex gets depleted too. Your dopamine tank also empties. You are a human being, not a machine. But every time you choose to look at that challenging behavior not as a personal attack, not as disrespect or a tantrum, but rather as an attempt at communication from an overloaded brain, you change your child's destiny. You are literally creating and strengthening pathways of safety and affection in their mind. Society out there will keep pointing fingers. They don't know what synaptic pruning is. They don't know about the dopamine reward system, and they have no idea what an amygdala hijack is. But now, you know. And starting today, you do not need to, and you must not lower your head when a meltdown happens in public. You have biology, medicine, and science on your side. Your child's brain is not broken, and it is not defective. It is simply a high-performance machine trying to run in a world that, unfortunately, was not designed for it. But their mind is an absolutely incredible place, full of unique abilities when we, the adults, have the humility and empathy to learn how to navigate it. If this video took a mountain of jolt off your shoulders, please subscribe to the channel. But most importantly, send this link right now to that mother, to that father, or to that teacher who desperately needs to hear this today. Knowledge liberates, and understanding saves childhoods. I'm Gabby.
take a deep breath, it's not your fault, and you are doing a great job. I'll see you on our next journey inside the mind.